Hello, confirmation candidates. It's good to be with you again. Today I want to talk about a little bit about what is a saint. So I'm asking you to write a confirmation saint report. And I know some of you probably have varying familiarities with what is this whole saint thing about. And today I want to just give a little bit of background. We're going to begin by exploring what a saint is. And then I'll talk a little bit about how a person becomes a saint. And then finally, we'll talk about why saints matter, especially why they matter to us in our lives as confirmation candidates. So what is a saint? That's a great question. The word saint comes from the Latin word sanctus, meaning holy. So a saint is one who is holy. Most simply, a saint is somebody who lives with God in heaven. So we can think of All Saints' Day, right? We celebrate all of those saints, all those people who are with God in heaven. But for our saint report, and when we talk about saint with a capital S, we're talking about a very specific group of those who live forever in heaven. And that is the saints who have been recognized by the church as saints. That we say, we know for certain these are the people in heaven. These are folks whose names you're probably familiar with, right? People like St. Paul or St. Therese. And these are the folks that we're going to focus on for our confirmation saint report and who I want to talk about in a particular way today. So the first question we might have is, how does one become a saint? How does an ordinary Christian like you or I become St. Paul or St. Justin of Oakdale, right? God willing. How does that happen, right? How does that happen? That's a great question. And it's a long process. First, you have to be dead, right? You have to be with God in heaven. So you can no longer be among the living members of the church here on earth, though you are still a member of the church. Usually the church waits about 5 years after you die before this official process begins. And the first thing that the church is going to do is it's going to look at your life and it's going to ask, did you live a life of heroic virtue and extraordinary holiness? That is, the goal of all of us is to become saints, of course, and that always means an extraordinary life. But there are those who go even above and beyond that, right? That we can point to that life and say, that was an extraordinary life. That person loved God in a heroic way. And that's what the church is going to look for when creating a capital S saint. So what are they going to do? They're going to look at your life. Maybe they'll interview people who lived and knew you. They'll go through and look at your writings. We live in the age of social media. So maybe someday the church will sift through your social media posts and say, did this person love God in an extraordinary way? If the answer to that question is yes, you get a special title, and that title is venerable, and the church officially proclaims that you have lived a life of heroic virtue. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to look for proof that you, in fact, are in heaven. And that's by the way of miracles. Yes, miracles still do happen, God, and the saints intervene directly into the world. And so we'll look, and the church will say, well, has somebody been praying to the intercession of this saint, and has a miracle occurred through their intercession? And they'll go through a whole process of verifying whether there are any other possible scientific explanations or if it really is supernatural. And if it is, and it's approved, then the person becomes blessed, and the Pope makes a special declaration that this person is blessed. Their miracle has occurred. The final step after a second miracle has been determined that it has occurred, the person becomes a saint. Once you're a saint, again, the Pope comes out and he says, this person is a saint, and you get a special feast day. The church celebrates Mass in honor of you. Maybe you've been to a Saint Day Mass, right? And the priest wears white, and he talks about this particular saint and how they have loved Jesus in a special way. And that's you, once you're a saint. So why are they important? Why go through this whole process? Why have saints at all? That's a really great question. The church is bigger than just the people who happen to be living at one particular time in one particular place. The church is made up of all of those who have loved God and continue to live on in His presence. And those are the saints, right? And they are, in a real way, still members of the church. I love in the preface for the Mass of Christian Burial, part of the prayer the priest prays is, for your faithful ones, Lord, life is changed and not ended, right? And this is the whole point of the saints. Their life, though changed from our own, is not over. They live forever with God. And they are really members of the church. And so just like I might ask somebody that I know to be really holy to pray for me because I'm going through this challenge, or I need their help, or I want to love God better, and I know that this person has a special relationship with God, so too I can ask the saints, because they, like the people that I ask to pray in my own community, are really members of the church. A common misconception is that we worship the saints, and this is simply not true based on what I've been saying. We only worship God, right? The saints are our helpers and our cheerleaders. They are, in the sense, our older brothers and sisters in Christ, right? They've already made it through. They are victorious, right? And they want to help us, and they do so not only by their life and example, but by their prayers. And so I might ask a saint to pray for me so that I can be like them with God forever in heaven. You can see behind me here this beautiful image of a saint. This is St. Thomas More. And I picked him because he is one of those saints that I often turn to pray to, whose life has inspired me. I'll talk just a little bit about him. I won't bore you with the details, but he lived about 500 years ago in England, and he was a politician, a father, a family man, and when push came to shove, he was forced to pick between all of those great and wonderful earthly things: his career, his wealth, even his family, or his love for the Lord and his church. And he ultimately chose to love God more than anything else, and it cost him his life. And I think that's a really great example for me. Living as a lay person in the world, here's a layman. He's not a priest, he's not a bishop, he's a politician, he's a dad. Yet he lived a life of extraordinary holiness, that he was able to put God before everything else. And I hope that I might have that kind of courage too. I'm certainly not there yet. This is why the saints are great, right? I can turn to Thomas More and say, Thomas, help me to be more like you. Help me to put Jesus before all else. And these are the kinds of people that we want to look for as we're working on our confirmation saints, right? To say, whose life can inspire me? Who can I look at and say, I want to be like them? They follow Jesus in an extraordinary way. Their life speaks to me, and I want to be holy too. I hope this was helpful as we begin thinking about who the saints are and why they are so important to us in our time for confirmation. Look forward to seeing all of you back here in church soon.